There's a superpower that's ignored by the vast majority of people, and I don't know if you've noticed, but the vast majority act and do the things they do, work at what they work at, build families the way they build them, if they build them at all, have relationships with others, etc., 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 based on something that is what others will say. Yes, what others say about us, in a stronger or lighter way, affects our lives to the point that we tend to build our lives based on what's socially correct. Why? Because of what will they say? And there's advice in the Bible that's ancient and super powerful counsel. And it also explains the way we can carry this out, which is the superpower of completely ignoring what others say about us, so we can truly do what our soul came here to do. Now, it's not about completely ignoring everything others say, because from the perspective of faith, the great wisdom we can acquire is in the counsel of many people. Thinking that I have the one and only absolute truth, and that I can only fix myself and think and learn from myself and be the one who knows everything. Well, no, that's nothing but pride, and it's not what we're going to talk about in this video. Here we're going to talk about a superpower, about a capacity which is to learn from others when I choose to listen to what others tell me when I think it's right, and what I should do at that moment, but also to turn a deaf ear to the criticism or the what will they say from others when what they're trying to do, consciously or subconsciously, is limit me in my life. Each of our lives, whether we want it or not, is to some degree limited by what will they say. Sometimes it's what will my parents say? Sometimes it's what will my family say? Or what will my children say? Or what will my partner say? Sometimes it's what will my friends say? Sometimes it's what will my neighborhood say, right? The society I grew up in, etc., etc., etc. I've met people who don't buy the cars they'd want and need because of what will others say. And they go buy second-hand cars, older and less useful for their lives, for just one reason. If they bought the new one, what would people say about them? Well, you shouldn't stand out. You shouldn't stand out too much. You have to be humble. Well, no, that's not humility. That's fear. That's fear of what will people say. The Bible on numerous occasions invites us not to fear men and what they might say about us, not to be ashamed in any way of the right path because of what others might say. An example of this, Proverbs 29:25, where it says, Jared, Adam, and Ten Mokesh, the fear of man will be a snare, it will be a fall, it will be an obstacle. That would be more or less the translation. There's no greater obstacle to someone's life than fearing what others will say. And then it says, Botagadon and Sugav. He who trusts in the eternal will be elevated. One will fall, the other will rise. And we have the same thing in the book of Isaiah, in chapter 51, verse 7, where it says they're not to fear the reproach of men. That is, when they try to shame you for something you do. We see all the time the concept of do not fear, because yes, it is something that gives us fear. Separating ourselves from the majority, separating ourselves from society's consensus, going down a path where others might criticize us. For some of us, it happens because of fear of rejection. Something happened to us in the past, and now we're afraid of all rejection. So we spend all day trying to see how we fit in so people won't reject us again. Because each person's rejection causes my wound from some past rejection to awaken again. And if that's the case, I want to tell you something before I give you the biblical solution to all this. I want to tell you something. If you don't heal that wound, you'll never be able to stop acting to the tune of others out of fear of rejection. So this would be a first reason. But there's something we need to know, and that is that there's no greater slavery than not having control of my conduct when it's activated because of what others will say. That is, not being able to say no, not being able to stop doing certain things, or being very afraid to do certain others because of what will they say. This is an enormous slavery, and I'm going to explain why, and I want you to engrave this phrase in your mind. If you walk on water, people will say you didn't know how to swim. And the thing is, it doesn't matter what you do. Whenever you do something, there will always be someone to point at you and say, you're not doing it 100% right. There's a story that's told often, and is also very real, about a father and son who had a donkey and had a load to carry. So they put the load on the donkey, and both walked. Then people saw them and laughed at them and said, having a donkey, they walk and put only the load on it. They could get on it and not walk so much. Then, when they heard people laughing at them for that, one of the two got on the donkey with the load, and they passed by again and were criticized again, and people said, the son lets the father get on the donkey with the load and lets the son walk. What a bad father he is. So they decided to switch. They put the boy on top and the father below. Then they passed by again and were criticized again. This boy doesn't know how to honor his father. He's on top of the donkey and leaves the father below. So both got on the donkey with the load, and then they said, what bad people these are. Look what they're doing to the donkey. Both of them get on plus the load. The donkey is about to collapse. That's animal abuse. Then they decided to take everything off and leave the donkey. And people laughed at them again for carrying things themselves and leaving the donkey without a load. And the moral is that no matter what you do, there will always be someone to tell you that something about what you're doing isn't right. However, the advice for turning a deaf ear to what others say is deeply rooted in the spirituality of the Torah, of the Bible. There you'll be able to find a transformative message about this that can make it so you never again have the burden, have the slavery to what others say. And it's a very, very simple word, emunah. Emunah in the Torah is faith. But it doesn't mean faith in believing that something in the future will be better. It's not only that, it's something much deeper. It's a faith that everything that happens in the world, even that which is done through people who have free will, everything is directed by God without fail. God has the capacity to control this world completely. Even though people have free will to do what they want, God can control things so that things happen or don't happen. And if you read the Bible everywhere, you'll see that the great prophets, the great sages, when something happened, didn't blame people, but God. They didn't blame God, but they knew that God was behind the people. That when someone did something to them, it wasn't them doing that to them, but it was God. And not for evil, but for good. Joseph is sold by his brothers. The brothers had free will to sell him, but when they meet him again and think he's angry and will take revenge on them, he tells them, "It was God who brought me here through your betrayal." God was always behind the betrayal and did it and allowed it so that I would reach the highest place. Faith, emunah, that everything is directed by God and everything God does is for a greater good in the future. If this is so, then we come to understand that behind every word, behind every person, God is speaking to me. Listen carefully to this biblical episode. Jonathan, the son of King Saul, in the book of Samuel, says he went out to the camp, he and his armor-bearer, alone to the enemy camp, and suddenly he hears them talking, that they've had a dream. And what do they see? They see like a large loaf of bread rolling over the camp and destroying it. And someone interprets and says, "This is none other than Jonathan and his army who are going to destroy us." Jonathan hears in the enemies while they were talking in, let's say, spontaneous conversation, right, of his enemies. He hears the voice of God and tells his armor-bearer, "We can go and fight the two of us alone against everyone because God has given us the victory."